Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is. Hey, it's 11 o'clock here on the East Coast in the United States of America. Where are you joining from? Say hi. Welcome to the monthly edition of the CDO Matters Live podcast. This started as an Ask Me Anything, and it's still an Ask Me Anything. So if you want to ask me some questions about data strategy, data quality, master data management, you name it, let her rip. It's still an Ask Me Anything. That's the kind of the undercurrent of all of these conversations that we have. So thank you for joining. Hey, it's Halloween. I dressed up as a guy who works at a software company. So sad. The fact of the matter is, I've been so crazy busy. I've been traveling so much, and I've been so busy. I've had so many events that I didn't even know it was Halloween until about a couple hours ago. Like, pretty sad. I realize, very, very sad. But I had no plans, no Halloween plans, no costume, no anything. So you get what you get. You get a guy dressed in a company T-shirt who was bemoaning the fact that he didn't realize that it was Halloween until a couple hours ago. Fully also recognizing that Halloween is not necessarily a universal thing. I think it's a much bigger thing in North America than it is in other places. Maybe not. Hey, Pravid, you're in India. Do people celebrate Halloween in India? I honestly don't know. That's kind of rather. I should probably know, or I don't know. Is Halloween a thing outside of North America? I think it's kind of a thing in Europe for sure. I don't know. Hey, Kate from Wisconsin. Whereabouts in Wisconsin? Nicholas. Oh, Nicholas. Good morning from Ottawa. I thought you were in Montreal for some reason. Or are you just visiting Ottawa, the capital city of Canada? Ottawa is a wonderful place to visit if you've never been. You should check it out, especially if you're in the northeast of the US. I mean, it's an easy long weekend to get up to Ottawa. Also, Quebec City, by the way. Quebec City and Ottawa, two places in Canada. If you're like in the northeast of the US, like Boston, anywhere in the northeast, you can get up to Ottawa. You can get up to Quebec City for just a long weekend. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Some great cities. Speaking of Canada, there's Christopher from Buffalo, just across the Lake Ontario from Canada. Well, not even across, just kind of like underneath. I was in Toronto recently, and I could see Buffalo on a clear day. I had a dinner at like on the 40th or 50th floor of a office tower in Toronto, and on a clear day, you can see Buffalo, but getting cold and gray for the next 4 months. Yeah, I was in Philly this week, Christopher. So it was cold and gray in Philly, and just like the blah gray. And at least there was still a little bit of color in the trees. At least there was still, some leaves in the trees. Wasn't completely brown and depressing. But yeah, I get it. I'm originally from Western Canada, so trust me, I get it about cold and gray. Luis, hola from Mexico. Oh, there. I found out how to maximize my comment window. I can see. Hey, Dania Beach. Michael, I'm in Melbourne Beach. So around 2 hours, 2.5-ish north of you, 2 to 2.5 north of you, straight shot on 95. I have spent some quality time in Dania. Is the High Ally still open? I think they closed down the High Ally. There was it was High Ally, then it was a casino in High Ally, then I think it's just now a casino, which is kind of sad because the High Ally, and if people don't know what I'm talking about, High Ally, H-J-A-I, High, A-L-A-I, High Ally is like this really unique sport. It's Catalonian, I believe, from Spain. And it's like a court sport played with 4 people. Technically, I think High Ally is the fastest game. Like you have to have the fastest reactions of any game. And in Dania, Florida, where Michael is joining us from, there used to be High Ally, where you could go and watch. You can actually go bet on High Ally. But I remember Michael going to Dania multiple times, and a couple of times with my father, who actually lives in Western Canada. We were going through Dania, Lauderdale to get over to Bimini, where we would go fish. But I had been visiting Dania when I was actually living in Canada. Long story. but in the Dania Highlight, they had 25-cent beers and 25-cent hot dogs. So fond memories of the Dania Highlight. Brendan from Indy, welcome. Brendan O'Connor from Indy. Pravin says, yes, at some places there is Halloween celebrated in India. That's wonderful. Wausau, Wisconsin. I drove through there a couple of summers ago. I went to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and got really close, Kate, really close to Wisconsin. There's some islands up there. I forget what they're called, those islands, but I got close to Wisconsin up there. Actually, we did get into Wisconsin. We had dinner a couple of times in Wisconsin when we were actually technically staying in Michigan's not Iron Mountain. I forgot the name of the town. I'll screw it up. Okay, well, Nicholas, home work out of Montreal and Ottawa. Home base is Ottawa. Oh, I didn't know that. Love Ottawa. Hopefully there was no crazy river flooding this year. The last time I was in Ottawa, there were like 2 major floods in the Rideau, which is crazy. Michael, great beer. I think just a casino now. Yeah, that's a shame. Well, no, for 25 cents, trust me, my friend, it was not great beer. But any beer for 25 cents, arguably, especially for a Canadian like me, if it's 25 cents, even American money, 25-cent beer, sign me up. Great fishing over in Florida. Yes, indeed. We would go to Bimini if you've never been. Ironwood, yes. Yes, Kate. That's yes. Stayed in Ironwood, right on the border. It's so beautiful up there. If you've never been, that's another place that people should consider to go. If you're into the outdoors, if you're like into waterfalls, if you're into trees, which my wife and I are big time into trees, love to hug the trees. If you're into like hiking, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, but also Upper Peninsula, I guess you can't call it the Upper Peninsula of Wisconsin, but up there. You could even get into Minnesota, right? In and around Duluth, Minnesota. So from Duluth, Minnesota, all the way around to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it is beautiful. There's no people, like none at all. And it's just beautiful scenery, lots of trees. The lakes are just breathtaking. Lake Superior is unbelievable. It's not a lake, it's an ocean. I mean, it's technically a lake because it's fresh water, but it is massive. Fun fact, I watched people surfing in Lake Superior. No joke, when we were up there, surfing in Lake Superior. Hey, Jamie from Colorado. Michael from Boston, happy Halloween. Indeed, I was in Boston a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago. I was in Boston for a CDO event with a company called Corinium. Got to meet with a number of data leaders. In fact, Michael, I posted it on LinkedIn. I offered up a pass to that event in Boston. It was in the Southport district of Boston, and I'd never been there. Completely redesigned, rebuilt area of South Boston on the water, on the port. Knew everything. I didn't even think that existed in Boston. It was really, really cool. Yeah, I offered up 5 passes to anybody in Boston who was able to go to that event. If you didn't see it, bummer. But next time I have passes, I will be sure to let people know. We will sponsor an event, or sometimes event organizers will just give me a pass, or here's some passes to go to event X or event Y. And I had 5 of them for that event in Boston a couple of weeks ago, but nobody took me up on my offer, which is kind of a drag. Jamie from Colorado. Hello. Happy Halloween, everybody. So welcome. Today's topic is, I'm going to do a little bit of a review of our Data Hero Summit, which Nicholas participated in. Messy. But that's not going to be the only thing I think we're going to talk about today. Just because of, I want to keep it flowy. I want to keep it fun. It's Halloween. It's Friday. Let's keep it flowy and funny. And if you've got questions, just throw them at me. They call me an expert. I think I'm an expert. I'm doing a lot of things a long time. I won't list out all of my credentials, but I know a thing or two about data. And if you're struggling with governance, if you're struggling with quality, if you're struggling with MDM, or just looking for to bounce ideas, just let me have it. I'm here to help. Literally, that's why I am here. I started this Ask Me Anything to help. I started my podcast, CDO Matters, to help. My goal is to extend this tenure of CDOs and to help people become CDOs. I want to share what I learned. That's a great segue into the Data Hero Summit. So why do we do what we do? Well, of course, I work for Profisee. Okay. Oops. Sorry. There we go. We sell MDM software. We want to sell more software, but we believe the best way to do that, is to create a community, is to provide information to people when they need it. We believe that sharing information, sharing best practices, creating a community, having people like me act as a trusted advisor, we believe that that will create goodwill in the market. We believe that that will create a community in the market. And should you ever need MDM, should you ever need it, well, then you'll want to turn to us because you see us as a trusted partner. We're transparent about this strategy, right? We want to sell software. We want to sell software. And of course, it's pretty obvious when you listen to the Data Hero Summit, it's pretty obvious that we're in the MDM space and we have a little bit of a bias in that direction. But our strategy here is primarily one around community building and thought leadership and advocacy for you. That's why we came up with the Data Hero Summit. And I know that may sound a little pithy and it's like, yeah, sure. It's true. We live it, we breathe it, we walk it, we talk it. That's our approach at Profisee. That's pretty much, you just described our marketing strategy at Profisee, is to put me out there, to offer up best practices, to share what we know. That's why if you go to profisee.com, holy cow, guys, like there is so much content on profisee.com, white papers, insights, a lot of the things that I've published, others that Profisee have published. There's some Gartner quality insights there around how to do MDM, how to do data quality, what to think about from a data strategy perspective. So it's core to our strategy at Profisee to help and to be out there and to provide thought leadership. It just so happens that we also see changes in the market, right? We also see changes happening to events. There are some significant changes underway in the world of events. I think the days of kind of just go to a hotel and be talked at for 4 days, those events are still happening. Gartner events still largely happen that way. And that's not bad, and I'm not being judgmental. But what we're starting to see is a few things. One is that we can broaden the tent. Not everybody can afford $4,000. And that's what a ticket to Gartner costs, by the way. If you want to go to a Gartner event, it's $4,000. Like, that's a lot of money. Not everybody, if you are a manager, in a data function, if you are a steward, if you are a data governor, your directors and your VPs, probably even at a VP level, only and above, are the ones that are getting to go to Gartner. And that's tough, right? And we wanted to just kind of expand, allow others to come to and to create a Gartner quality event and make it free and make it for anybody to come. Yeah, of course, there's some Profisee marketing there. You can't do this stuff without a little bit of marketing. Same is true at events, by the way, right? If you go to those events in the hotels for 4 days where people are talking at you, there's going to be sponsors. It just is, right? The hotel needs to be paid for. That coffee needs to be paid for. Your lunch needs to be paid for. All that stuff costs. So there will necessarily be sponsors there, but we wanted to do things a bit of a different way. We wanted to keep the tent as big as possible. We wanted to invite as many people as possible and have as many people show up. So that's the strategy behind the Data Hero Summit. It is building relationships and building a community. It's why I do these events once a month, right? So that's our strategy. My throat is really tickly. There's down here in Florida, there's something, it's fall. It was a big event, my friends. It hit 59 degrees last night, which for us thin-skinned Floridians, yes, I'm originally Canadian, but my blood is run very, very thin. Now, anything in the 50s for us, and that's like, Celsius, that's like 14. That's still a reasonably decent summer day in my hometown of Edmonton, Alberta. But here, it's like winter. 59 degrees, like, so anyway, that's a little bit of the strategy, the insight, the behind the scenes, as it were, as to why we did the Data Hero Summit. Oh, Michael, Southport Seaport was a dust bowl. The Big Dig made that. I see. Okay. Yeah, it's an entire mini city. And the interesting thing, Michael, for whatever reason, I don't know why, it's all like high end. It's like high end everything, high end retail, high end apartments, expensive stuff. Sorry, I'm back to talking about Boston again. But chances are pretty good if you say where you're from. because I travel so darn much, chances are pretty good I'll have visited there in the last year, which is kind of crazy. But so that's a little bit of the strategy behind the Data Hero Summit. Make it a big tent, provide thought leadership, provide guidance, make it free, invite as many people as you can, and make it valuable, make it worthwhile. This is our third time. The first year we did it, we tried to cram a whole bunch of stuff in, and we tried to do it, I think it was almost 8 hours. And we started reasonably early in the East Coast, which meant it was like way too early on the West Coast. What we learned is the best way to do one of these online events is to give 4 or 5 hours ish, right? Where you want to make it accessible from the West Coast of the United States. We also want to try to make it a little bit accessible for Europe as well. But what we saw, which is crazy, 75 people from 75 countries signed up. Like, holy cow, 75 countries. I heard that. I was like, no way. 75 countries, almost 4,000 people. We were like, I think our final number was 3,980 something. So almost 4,000 people registered for the Data Hero Summit, which is just like amazing. What we saw was, right around 1,000 people, just underneath 1,000 people were watching and tuning in. For 25%, right, registered around 4,000, watching around 1,000, like that's actually really, really good. You can do better, of course, everybody can do better, but from an industry-wide perspective, that's actually really, really good. We're very, very proud of that. That says to us that we were putting content that people actually wanted to watch and listen to. So, by the way, if you're watching this and you didn't attend the Data Hero Summit, you can download all that content now. You can watch all that content now. It's out on YouTube. There is a link on Profisee.com. One link where you can get all the presentations in one landing page. Check it out. I went back to that landing page to rewatch a lot of the content. Yes, of course, I was there in the event. I was watching it, but I wanted to rewatch all of it before having this conversation with you today. Yeah, let's find that link, Michael. It's a good idea. I think this will work. This may be behind a reg wall. If that doesn't work, let me know. It may ask you for an email, but if you're already attending my events, you're probably already on our email anyway. But if that doesn't work, let us know or let me know. It's working for me, but I have superpowers because I'm, obviously are logged into the Profisee network. But if that doesn't work, let me know. That's the link. That's where all the presentations are. You can find them. So let's get into it. I don't know if I want to go presentation by presentation. That seems a little, I don't know. Themes. Let's stick with some of the high level themes that really stuck out to me. Let's start at a thematic level. And then we'll dive in maybe into specific presentation. Oh, crap, Michael, sorry. There's the link in the doc section of the Data Hero Summit. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sam. Oh, thank you, Caleb. Cool. Yeah, okay. My bad. I shouldn't be given the power to give out links in a webinar. Yeah, because that's sitting behind our reg link. But anyway, hopefully you got it figured out, Michael. There's the link. And I think they're mostly all accessible directly through YouTube. You would need to know what to say, but anyway, there's the link. Thanks everybody for helping. Let's get into some of the key themes. What were some of the themes that really jumped out to me? There were kind of 3 or maybe 4, and some of these were purposeful and others were more organic. Let's talk about the ones that were more purposeful and a theme that we wanted to focus on and most certainly was a topic of discussion. But that first one to me is people, right? People. It sounds pithy and high level, almost platitudinous to say, okay, people are critical. People are the missing link. People are you need a strong engagement. It's all about people. But it's true. I mean, it's just true. When you listen to the people that are doing things well, right? When you listen to the CDOs that I interviewed on my panel, right? Talking about their success. When you listen to Nicholas talking about his success at WSP, people, right? Getting people on board, getting people engaged, getting people excited, giving people what they need, right? Giving your customers what they need, right? Getting the right levels of buy-in across the organization, on and on and on. It's all about people. And we had specific sessions focused on that. That was the kind of the closing keynote with Tom Redmond. Brilliant guy, loved his presentation. He's one of my mentors. Tom is one of the preeminent thought leaders in our space. He's talking about people. And I love it. So that was a very purposeful thing on our behalf, trying to make the focus about people. But what I love to see was that the focus around people came out organically in the conversations that we had throughout the day, right? The importance of people. And I really see that being two sides of the equation here. Of course, us, the data people doing the work, right? The stewards, the governors, the analysts, the managers, of course, right? That's the people that we really, really wanted to focus on and celebrate, right? And say, hey, we're all doing heroic things every day, right? To try to move the needle around analytics, around governance, around AI. We're all doing those things. We wanted to focus on that. We wanted to celebrate people. And I feel like we did. Next year, I would love to find a way to just celebrate individual accomplishments somehow, right? And it's very common at a lot of these CDO events. I go to them all the time. Here's my badges from the last 2 weeks. It's very common at these events, these CDO events, for people to get awards like CDO of the year or top influencer of the year or whatever, right? Like best CDO of the year. I don't know, lots of different names for these awards. It's very, very common stuff. I'd love to find a way for us to celebrate stewards, governors, consultants, right? Value adders, whatever. But I'd love to find a way to try to celebrate people to actually doing the work somehow, some way. And for people who are doing the work, like Tom Redmond talked about, for them to be able to celebrate and for them to be recognized somehow, some way. I'm brainstorming here, guys. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'd love to find a way for the people that are working hard every day, to ensure we've got high levels of quality, that are working hard every day to put the governance committee meetings together and to pull them off, that are working hard every day to update master data records to make sure that we can recognize revenue accurately, right? I'd love to find a way to actually celebrate humans, right? People, right? Who are doing that stuff somehow, some way. Maybe it is the Data Hero Awards and we can nominate people for the Data Hero Awards. I don't know. I'm brainstorming here. So, but I'd love to find a way to do that. But people was one of the themes, and I'd love to just kind of take it a step further. That could even maybe get to maybe things like if somebody's comfortable, like pull them on stage, right? We did at least half of that content we did live in a studio in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, Chamblee, Georgia, but whatever. Atlanta. We're in a studio, and so we could actually pull people live. Of course, they'd be sitting in front of their computers, but we could do that, right? Like we could engage in real-time conversations. We could take some time to celebrate, people that are doing the work. Yes, directors, VPs, those folks are really important. CDOs, really, really important. But I think we can find a way to spread that love somehow, maybe. So I'm just kind of brainstorming here in real time. So people, what was another theme that stood out to me? Well, advances in technology, right? We did want to highlight the stuff that Profisee is doing around AI because we're very, very proud of that. It's cool. We had a session specifically talking about our AI orchestrator. Her name, I'm humanizing her, Daisy. It's named Daisy. I don't know, that sounds weird. We just, as humans, we want to humanize everything. So to say it when speaking about our AI orchestrator seems weird. So I'm going to call her Daisy. I'm going to make her a her. I hope she's okay with that. Well, she has no feelings. Or maybe she doesn't, we just don't know. Yee. All right, AZ, our orchestrator. We wanted to highlight the cool stuff that Profisee is doing because we've done some really cool stuff. AZ, and I refer to her as an orchestrator. She's also a help agent, okay? But how we're going to market with AZ, how we are launching AZ is primarily she's going to be an orchestrator. So imagine her being like a team leader or a team manager, right? That's kind of the orchestrator type role. This is where agentic is going, my friends, right? Where agentic AI is you're building agents that fulfill specific tasks or maybe even a role. But let's just go with a task for now, where you could have sitting in Microsoft Teams or Slack, whatever, where you've got, Billy and Susie, human beings that do task 1, task 2, but then you've got agent 1, agent 2, agent 3 that are right there in Slack or right there in Teams, and you can real time talk to them, or you could talk to AZ as the team manager and say, hey, AZ, I need some help building an MDM data model. We're on it. We got it. I've got an agent that actually does that and can recommend a model based on data that we see sitting in the Profisee Hub, right? That's the kind of stuff that we're going towards. And in fact, we're working on an agent to do data modeling. We're working on agents to make data quality recommendations, to make match recommendations. So all of the critical capabilities of MDM, all of them, we believe that agents will augment. That's an important distinction, my friends. Augment, maybe sometimes even automate if we're comfortable with it, if we want to give the reins for automation. But what we see those agents doing is mostly augmentation, recommending things, like making a recommendation. Here's what I recommend, right? We can already do this today in Profisee. We can take a chunk of unstructured text and recommend how to classify that data, right? To add attributes to a customer record or to a product record based on what we see in unstructured data. That's the kind of stuff that we're working towards. We're already there when it comes to the functionality, what I just described. But where AZ is going to be our orchestrator, she is going to be the team lead of this team of agents. The team of agents will help you with modeling, data quality rules, match rules, you configuring an MDM environment. We've got AZ to do help right now, which is awesome, right? It's a great starting point. But we see this rapidly, and we'll have more agents that are coming up in our November release. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm honestly even a little worried that we may be getting ahead of the market from an adoption perspective and a readiness perspective, because there are things that you'll need to do in order to kind of get the most value out of these team of agents, right? But that aside, we wanted to highlight technology. We wanted to highlight the depth of Profisee's integration into Fabric. Fabric was a repeating theme, and I think rightfully so. I'm a huge believer in Fabric architectures. Microsoft is not the only Fabric. Okay, Fabric is an architecture. If you want to learn more, I would invite you to check out, maybe I can find the link to that. I would invite you to check out a episode of the podcast that I had earlier called Demystifying the Data Fabric. Demystifying the Data Fabric. I'll see if I can find the link to that, and I'll put it in the chat if I can. But Profisee is, and I am completely bullish on data fabric architectures. Microsoft just happens to be doing it better than anybody else. And bonus, we are tightly aligned to Microsoft, and we are proud of that fact, right? We are proud of the fact that we are closely aligned to Microsoft. So we wanted to highlight that, right? We wanted to highlight the fact that we are a native workload in Fabric. If you listen to the conversation between Dipti and Eric, our CTO, talking about kind of where things are going with the Fabric, if you listen to that session, something I think is fundamental, maybe arguably even game-changing, and I don't use that phrase lightly. What you will hear Dipti say, and she says it almost in passing, and it's so smooth and it just kind of flows. I wouldn't blame you if you overlooked it or overheard it and didn't really kind of pay too much attention to it. But something she says, and something that I firmly believe, She talked about the fabric being this single place to do data management workloads, right? What she said was for analytical and operational uses of data. That, my friends, I think is the game changer, particularly when you look through the lens of a Snowflake or a Databricks or other architectures that are specifically focused on analytical, right? That are focused only on analytical uses, right? This is one of the reasons why we invested with McKnight Consulting to have them do a cost analysis on doing DIY MDM within a Snowflake or a Databricks. Because I keep hearing more and more of this, right? Oh, I don't need a Profisee. I don't need a Reltio. I don't need any of those things because I'll just go build some Python in Databricks and we'll be good to go. Now, can you do basic entity resolution in an ETL job when you're moving data into a lake architecture? Yep, you sure can. You sure can. Can you do all 12 of the critical capabilities expected of an MDM platform from within that Python script? Nope. Can you do data stewardship? No. Can you do complex workflow management? No, and on and on. So getting back to the idea of the fabric. Sorry, I went into sales mode there. But getting back to the idea of the fabric, having one place to do an MDM workflow, right? Where you could have one place to configure and manage master data products, right? That was kind of another theme that was interesting to me. And you heard companies actually talk about creating master data products. You heard that from the gentleman from Aker BP or Aker BP. Sorry, I'm Canadian. I put hard A's on everything. Aker BP, pasta. Creating these master data products, having one place to do that. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be master data products. It could be gold medallion anything. Like gold medallion anything. Could be gold medallion master data records, could be gold medallion fields, attributes, metadata, whatever, dashboard, don't care. All right. Having one place to do that for an analytical use is beneficial, but having one place to do that for an analytical and operational. This is why Microsoft is ahead of the field. And if I had to choose, I'd be betting on Microsoft. The reason is because they will close the loop on analytical and operational, meaning that if you do one thing, right, that if you create this master data record, that it can be used within your analytics layer immediately and your operational layer immediately with native integrations to both, across both immediately. Meaning if I create a customer gold master record, I could expose that as easily into Dynamics 365 as I could into OneLake. Like that, that to me is like the real value of a fabric architecture. Because then we start to get into things like looking at transactional data, right? Analyzing transactional data. This is going beyond MDM, by the way. Looking at transactional data, running knowledge graphs on transactional data, where we would start to understand the patterns of what good looks like from a business process management perspective, right? We've been focused on what the patterns of good look like in analytical use cases for a while, right? We develop our governance policies to try to enforce what good looks like within analytical uses of data. But knowing what good looks like, or put another way, when data is fit for purpose, from an operational perspective, if we start doing that in our data management platforms and pushing those things back and even making recommendations back into the operational plane, we've created a closed loop environment. Imagine a retailer, right? Retailers struggle with this, right? Where it's like retailers go and try to market their products and spend a ton of money on marketing. We'll market to them and do all this marketing. People will go buy stuff, but marketers cannot attribute the money that was spent on a marketing activity to an actual dollar in the bank or euro or franc or whatever, krona. Can't do it. We call it attribution. It is like the holy grail of marketing. We suffer the same problem in data, but what I see with the fabric is what we will be able to see very, very shortly is when we do things from a data quality perspective, when we do things from an MDM perspective, that will feed right back into the operational layer and things will improve. And we will be able to start quantifying our business benefit, to our business outcomes. We'll be able to start turning the dial, not just from, hey, how does this better match pattern in MDM actually reduce our duplicate rate in data that is consumed in the analytical layer, but also how does this impact the operational layer? That's why I see Fabric being so transformational. From Ryan Duffy. Ryan, you're too important to be on my podcast these days. You're like a big shot CDO. Congratulations on the promotion to a Canadian company. Roots are a Canadian company. Your parent company may be based in the U.S., but I do believe that the roots there are BMO are Arcadian, Bank of Montreal, I do believe. It's great to see you. Thanks for coming up. Question: how do you see MDM integrating with the growth and crystallization of data products? And further, how do you see MDM centralized, embedded with LOBs and domains? Hey, great question. So my friends at Gartner would call master data records the quintessential data products. I'm quoting my friend Helen Grimster, who is no longer with Gartner, but had a presentation that she shared at many Gartner events last year, where she was saying master data records are the quintessential data products. And I believe her to be correct, as she usually is. They are stewarded, governed, structured, discoverable, all the things that we want out of a data product, particularly if you put those data products into some form of a data marketplace. What needs to change is that we have multiple master data products based on context, right? Based on how that data is going to be, how that record is going to be used. This is the heart and soul of a federated operating model, right? Where we can walk and chew gum, where we can have our cake and eat it too, where we can have some idea of centralization, but some degree of a domain autonomy. This is hard. This is really, really, really hard, because when it comes to master data, it's used everywhere, right? It is literally the glue between quote to cash, procure to pay, you name it. However, we do need to enable domain centricity to the degree that we're comfortable doing that from the perspective of our operating model. Part of the problem with the data mesh, I would argue, is that the IT organization was trying to enforce an operating model on the rest of the business, right? IT said, wow, hey, we want domain autonomy. We want domain centricity. We want to let the domains do anything that they want to do. That is inherently a decision related to an operating model, right? Which is not our decision to make, right? For example, a Berkshire Hathaway would do fine with the data mesh, right? A holding company, allow the lines of business, allow individual businesses to do whatever they want, knock yourselves out, go for it, right? So at Berkshire Hathaway, maybe that's even an extreme example, but I'm using it by design, would be perfect with a data mesh, because the data mesh as an operating model completely aligns to Berkshire Hathaway's operating model, right? And there are other companies that are still operating like that, by the way, that operate more like holding companies, where individual businesses or franchises or licensees or countries even, right? Maybe Nestle USA versus Nestle Canada, right? Where they are okay with those lines of business doing their own thing. That's their operating model, right? Domain autonomy says, okay, well, we want the domains to operate however they want to operate. If that aligns to your operating model, hey, that's great. But what I saw with a lot of failed data mesh deployments, it didn't at all. It didn't at all. Because I'd hear this at Gartner all the time. We've got a data strategy that is focused on domain centricity, right? We've got this strategy to federate, or maybe even completely decentralize. Those things are different. They're related, but they're different. Federation versus decentralization. But I'd hear either. And then I'd ask the question, oh, well, tell me more about your business operating model, right? Tell me more. Does that align to your business strategy? And often it didn't. It's a recipe waiting to happen. Anyway, long answer to a short question, Ryan. We need to be able to support both from an MDM perspective. What do I mean by both? If the CEO asks how many customers do we have, there's only one answer to that question, right? But at the same time, if the chief marketing officer wants flexibility to call her customers however she wants to define her customers. She should have that flexibility too, so long as it aligns to the operating model. So long as it aligns to the operating model. So we need to be able to do both. That does require, what I just described, requires a high degree of governance maturity. I would argue a level of maturity that many companies do not have. The idea of two things being true at the same time will be perplexing to a lot of companies and will be perplexing to a lot of leaders and requires governance maturity. At a high level, it's easy to understand why. Because instead of one set of rules, now you have N sets of rules. You've got a set of rules for marketing, you've got a set of rules for procurement, you got a set of rules, and you also have them for cross-functional use cases. And the use case will determine which master record you use. Sounds great, a little hard to do because of the required governance maturity, but we do need to be able to do both. One way to think about this, Ryan, is if when I was at Gartner, I would use a 3-ring Venn diagram, right? Simple 3 rings, Venn diagram. Stuff in the middle, master data, stuff on the edges. I would, where there's 2 areas of overlap, you could make a case that that's still master data, but the stuff on the edges. Data in Salesforce. You could have 200 attributes on a customer record in Salesforce. If they're never shared, if they never go outside of marketing, who cares? Let marketing do whatever they want to. That's domain centricity. Knock yourself out. But the minute that things get shared, you need to start having some idea of a shared definition for a given use case. Now, it is true that you could have multiple master data records. You could have a marketing master and you could have a enterprise-wide master. Totally valid if you wanted to, if you're comfortable sometimes with the answers being different based on the use case or based on the report or based on the desired business outcome. But again, that does touch on governance maturity, which a lot of companies aren't at that level. So I don't know, Ryan, hopefully that answers your question. It's hard. It's hard to do. It ultimately comes right back down to maturity. So that is the evolution of MDM. Another way to think about this, maybe, would be that, and I've said this, I don't know if I said it at a Data Hero Summit, because it can be kind of incendiary, particularly given the fact I work for an MDM company. But another way to think about this is the single version of truth to a certain degree. I don't want to say is dead, maybe. But here's the reality. The notion of truth, and I hate to use that word notion, but I don't know a better one. The idea of truth is contextually bound. It always has been. Anybody who has tried to sit marketing down with finance in one room and get them to agree on a customer definition knows what I'm talking about. The notion of truth is contextually bound. Right? What is true to marketing may not necessarily be true to finance. And this is a function of how our businesses operate. It just is. We are functionally specific. We have got these lines, right? And we say, okay, we want to be hyper specialized around marketing and hyper specialized around procurement and hyper specialized around finance. And if we recognize that we have these areas of specialization in our organizations, because that's the best way to run an organization is to allow them to specialize, well, then they're going to manage data differently. They just are. And we've always known this. And again, getting back to my example of trying to get marketing and finance to align on a customer definition. They don't, not because they dislike each other, and they don't, not because they don't care about data, they don't because they are hyper specialized, and that's exactly what we want them to be. It's exactly what we want them to be. Their risk profiles are different. We in data love to complain about how marketing is doing dumb things in Salesforce with our data. Well, the fact is their risk profile is inherently lower than finance's risk profile. By design. Because if we send the wrong snail mail to the wrong address, or maybe, or our campaign efficiency is slightly less than it could be, not a good thing, but we're not going to break the law. We're not going to jail. Right? So our businesses operate differently by design, and it's no wonder that the data looks different. It's no wonder that the quality standards are different. And federation, aka also, decentralization, kind of acknowledges this. The data mesh kind of acknowledges this, But if we want to embrace that, that's cool. But again, if the CFO asks how many customers do we have, there's only one answer to that question. So the second half of my assertion that the notion of truth is contextually bound, that is true. But within any one context, in any one context, there can only be one version of the truth. So truth is contextually bound, multiple contexts, but within any one context, there can only be one version of truth. So it's factually incorrect to say the one single version of truth is dead, because it is not. Within any one context, there can be only one version of the truth, right? And if you've got multiple, I mean, forget about it. The hard part is when your context is cross-functional, right? If your context is cross-functional, like the CEO, the CFO, that's actually arguably easier. You can just say, you need to rely on one definition that works for the entire organization. That's historically, frankly, how we've kind of done MDM. The person with the biggest title wins from a definition perspective. So technology, Fabric, completely bullish on Fabric, because I see it as being the way that we will close the loop between operational and analytical uses of data. I even, my friends, see maybe a day when, at the very least, we hyper-virtualize data in a way that starts to functionally disintegrate. I think I could live with that. The difference between OLTP and OLAP. I think they're still going to be there. Fast read, fast write, right? I think those things they'll still be sitting there. We'll have OLAP databases, right, for fast reads, for analytics. We'll have OLTP for fast writes, write optimized. I think we'll still have those things, because our disk drives and there's other kind of hardware limitations that kind of necessarily require us to do that. But I think the Fabric will just erase the differences between the two. We'll hyper-virtualize them to the point where, for us, like end users, who cares? We're kind of already starting to see this with open source formats in lakehouse architectures, right? If I can dump everything into Delta Parquet, great. Even though maybe data is sitting in Redshift, it's sitting wherever in Azure, and just this one single place where it's basically one place to do things. My head starts to spin, because I think a lot of the kind of, if you trace everything back to a lot of the biggest problems that we have, is the fact that we've got analytical and operational data sitting in different places. I mean, it's simply like that simple. Key theme number 3 that I heard over and over and over again. Now, this wasn't really kind of planned. It just evolved, right? We heard this from Nicholas at WSP. We heard this from the 3 CDOs that I talked to: Rebecca Oakhill, Santosh Reddy, Hody Crouch, who's the VP of Data and Analytics at Aaron's Rents. We heard this over and over again, which is this idea of agility, speed to market, move, let's go. Right? Our businesses can't wait for us to build frameworks. They can't wait for us to figure out governance in its entirety, right? We need to move, right? Whether that is AI, and hey, fact of the matter is, I think that, we're learning as we go when it comes to AI. Is there some risk there? Absolutely. Absolutely, there's some risk there. But I think most organizations are saying, wow, this is something we need to figure out. We need to learn. We need to embrace a growth mindset and innovate around AI, right? We need to limit our risk wherever we can, right? But you heard, in essence, 2 banks, right, talk about how they're implementing AI. Banks aren't necessarily known. This is Rebecca at Access Capital and Santosh from Synovus. Not necessarily known for being risk tolerant, but are still moving forward on these things. I did a CDO panel earlier in the year with Emma York, who is the CDO of London Stock Exchange Group, and James Benford, who is the CDO of Bank of England. Okay, Bank of England, right, where they are moving forward with AI, right, and are experimenting, are doing POCs, are doing what they can to try to mitigate business risk, but is moving forward. So that's what I heard over and over and over again, is this idea of agility, this idea of learning as we go, growing as we go. We haven't figured out everything. Where there's and that is another really, really important thing, is we haven't figured out everything, right? I heard this from everybody that presented, and anybody tells you that we have figured out everything when it comes to AI. Nah, no way. No way. Most of us are still stuck in kind of legacy mode, rows and columns mode, deterministic mode. Most of us, right? Not all of us. All of us, and some of the folks that you heard from, are moving forward and are delivering value. Maybe that is with good old fashioned meat, potatoes, MDM. Nothing wrong with that. If your monthly reports are still incorrect, if you can't build a single view of your customer today, you got to solve that problem. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to do everything. It's not always about AI. It's not like AI. However, I do think that if you are in a leadership position and you're not focused on AI, that's existential. You need to be. Everybody's expecting movement on AI. So walk and chew gum. How do you focus on the foundations? How do you focus on some of the basics? Right? How do you make the monthly reports correct, which probably still aren't? Right? How do you do stuff like MDM, single version of, customer 360, for example, supplier 360? How do you do that stuff while at the same time figuring out AI? This is the balancing act that we all need to figure out. This is true not just for data leaders, but for you and I, for all of us. For all of us. Have you built your own GPT? If you haven't, you should. Tinker with it. Try it. Make sure what you're doing aligns to your corporate security policies. Make sure you are aware of what your security policies are. Do you have an enterprise version of OpenAI or any of the other foundational LLMs? Do things within the bounds of which your OPSEC is telling you are the rules. But go experiment. Go build your own GPT. I built a digital Malcolm months ago. I'm having some problems with him. He's addicted to M dashes, and I can't get him to stop. And I sometimes I don't necessarily appreciate his tone. But anyway, like, we could all be doing this. This is the greatest thing about LLMs, right? I pay $20 a month for the ChatGPT Plus, whatever it is. I don't know. But we've got an enterprise version at Profisee, and they want us to experiment. They want us to play with this stuff. And you could say, okay, well, how would I do that? Well, again, please operate within the confines of what your company is comfortable with. But we all have a lot of training data. How many emails, personal emails, if work emails are work IP, but how many personal emails have you sent over the last 3 years, right? You've got training data. How many Word docs? How many things have you written, right? But email, like, if you're looking for training data to fine tune your own GPT, we all have sources of data out there. We certainly do. I mean, yeah, I wrote a book, and I write blogs, and I write white papers, and I present it in front of hundreds of people. So I've got a lot of training data, which is pretty cool. Maybe that's why digital media is such a pain in the keister. But learning as we go, figuring things out as we go. I really advocate just tinkering with LLMs for yourself if you haven't already, right? You'll learn a lot of stuff. One of the things that you will probably learn, I would hope that you would learn, is when it comes to fine tuning, and I use that phrase purposefully, my friends, not training, fine tuning, GPT, the P stands for pre-trained. But if you're fine tuning a model to get it to try to act in your voice, or say things in your voice, or say things, or maybe aligned to a specific knowledge base or skill set, right? What you'll find is that process is dependent on text. It's not dependent on rows and columns, right? If you try to ask a GPT to go and analyze an Excel spreadsheet, it'll do it. It'll absolutely do it. But that connection between LLMs, natural language, and structured data is just really not there yet. It's not ready for prime time. Talk to a GPT about this. Ask a GPT, hey, should I be, what are the risks of using you to analyze an Excel spreadsheet, right? There are a few. But these are the things you'll learn if you start tinkering with this technology. So Data Hero Summit was fantastic because we talked a lot about people, and I would love to find a way to get more people involved. I'd love to find a way to celebrate people. We talked a lot about technology. I went down a Fabric rabbit hole, but it's not just about Fabric. Of course, it's about LLMs. It's about AI. It is about AI for data management. I've been focused on MDM, but AI for data management, man, I am excited. Like, I'm really excited about some of the things that I'm seeing in the metadata management space. I'm really excited about finding ways to govern unstructured data. I'm really excited about the idea of breaking the silos that exist between data management and knowledge management. This is going to be something I'm talking about a lot at conferences next year. I'm actually giving a keynote speech in New York on November 17th at the Taxonomy Bootcamp, which is a kind of a sister conference to KM World, Knowledge Management World. So KM World is like the preeminent conference of the year for knowledge managers, people that manage a lot of unstructured data, people that manage search infrastructures, people that are managing content management systems and knowledge management systems. I'm giving a keynote in November. Well, it already is. Tomorrow's November. Crazy. Focused on how we need to bring these worlds together, how we need to bring the world of data management together and knowledge management together. That's actually a great topic for next month's CDO Management Live or CDO Matters Live. I think that's something that I'd really like to talk about. It amazes me. We've had these two separate disciplines, knowledge management and data management, existing for years, coexisting for years without even knowing that each other exist. Using the same words to using different words to describe the same processes. It's really kind of a mind bender when you start to go into the world of data management and start to understand what people are doing when they're managing unstructured content in a content management system, used often by marketing product organizations that are managing large blocks of content that are generally being used in your website, but not exclusively, maybe internally. But the similarities, but also differences. But when you start talking about unstructured data, ooh, baby, like Word docs, PDFs, even getting into XML and JSON formats, semi-structured, I get it. There is a lot of work to be done there around governing all of that data. How do you deliver trust in that data? It's what we do as data managers. We deliver trust. How do you deliver trust in data that is a story, for example, or maybe like a rich product description, right? How do you make sure that the way that you're describing your products is accurate and consistent, right? These are really hard problems to solve. These are the things we need to start figuring out. So yes, we had to focus on technology in the Data Hero Summit, and rightfully so, because things are changing really, really quickly. And then what we had to focus on was just kind of best practices, how to do things the right way. To me, that always aligned to find a way to move, find a way to innovate, find a way to learn as you go. Any questions? Any more questions? We've only got 2 minutes. Where does the time go? I don't know. It's amazing. You'd think that I was paid by the word. Great to see everybody on a Halloween. Have a fun and safe evening out there doing whatever you are going to do. I'm renovating a bathroom. We're renovating our entire house. This isn't my house. I've been renting a house now for 4 months. Where I am is not where I actually live. Michael, when would be the optimal time to introduce AZ into Profisee's MDM environment? Well, now. I think no time like the present. Oh yeah, renovations. My goodness. Well, especially on an old house. I live in a house from the 60s, and the things that I've been finding, it's like those nesting eggs, right? Like the egg inside the egg inside the egg inside the egg. It's like every time I open a new egg, there's another one inside, and it's like, oh, got to replace the lead piping. Oh, got to do this. Oh, got to do this. I was like, oh, good grief. But I'm doing all the work. Yes, Data Hero by day, bathroom renovator by night. If this whole data thing doesn't work out, I'm gonna launch a YouTube channel around how to renovate bathrooms, because I am in a crash course right now. What I'm working on right now is my shower pan. I'm building a custom pan, which is really kind of cool. But that's going to be my Halloween. is working in my bathroom, because I have 3 weeks to finish it before we have to move back into our house. And yeah, my wife and I are going to need to have a working toilet. So that's my Halloween evening, my friends. How do I see AZ impacting data governance and stewardship within Profisee? A heavy augmentation. And what do I mean by augmentation? Making recommendations. It's going to make recommendations on data quality rules. It's going to make recommendations on match patterns, right? It's going to tell you based on what it sees in the data, And what it sees through our FAQs, what it sees through its knowledge base, it's going to start making recommendations on ways AZ will make recommendations on way to optimize your configuration of MDM, right? So, the short answer there is faster time to value. It'll be easier and faster to configure MDM. It'll be faster to get up and running with this orchestrator on your team, right? Think of it of like having a small team of consultants, but where the consultant is AI. It's awesome. Hey, Christopher, DIY. Yep, it does. Well, here the funny thing is, I know we're over time. When we work in computers, right, and we can't touch what we work on, but when I can say, hey, I built that wall, oh, there's something tangible there. Additional cost, Michael, these are awesome questions. We're going to follow up offline. Sound good? Hey, happy Halloween, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. Would love to see you again in another month. We will do this in probably the week after Thanksgiving, I think, for another CDO Matters Live. But enjoy your weekend, everybody. So great to see you. I will see you in another month. Bye for now.